Before I became involved with the computer, I was intrigued with the idea of using devices and strategies to create art. I manually created drawings that simulated a mechanical process using a pen to make small black dots. I was interested in seeing whether or not I could operate physically like a mechanical device. In 1963, I made a pantograph-like device which I used to make transformations on a drawing. The device consisted of a framework of jointed rods in a roughly parallelogram form. I made changes to the relationship of the rods as they were moved. This allowed me to systematically alter my drawing. I used it to do a series of drawings based upon the paintings of several old masters. Here is a drawing from a drum plotter. We had one computer for the entire Ohio State University campus. As output for the graphics, you receive boxes of punch cards. I was fascinated by the idea of being able to do transformations on a drawing. I used the mathematical concept of circle inversion for the transformations on my drawing of Da Vinci's work. I discovered the potential of sine curve functions. I became interested in the concept of randomness and infinite variations on a theme. This is my algorithmic landscape, 1967. My plotter drawing of the hummingbird, with a play between representation and abstraction. A short segment from my hummingbird film. I thought the technology had some possibilities for character animation. It took many months and thousands of punch cards to create the film. I can't believe I had the patience to do it. We used hardware that involved the automatic photographing of frames as they were recorded onto microfilm. I found out years later that I was doing something called morphing. It's also true, the older you get, the more you look like a frog. I like the idea of going from old age to being young again the best. I use quadratic equations to design these plotter drawings of 3D surfaces. A 3-axis numerically controlled milling machine then cut the surface from a block of wood. At this stage, we had a PDP 1145 computer and a line drawing display. 3D vector drawings were updated rapidly, changing translation, rotation, and scale at real-time speeds. This capability at the time was like science fiction to us. It opened up a whole new world in terms of how one could do animation. I became confident that animation could become a new type of art form. We were constrained by the computer's speed and memory. There were no commercial raster displays available. We achieved a kind of pseudo-shading by packing the vectors close together. Color was the result of using color filters and stop-action photography. I used my paintings and drawings as texture maps. They were mapped onto simple geometry like spheres, cubes, planes, or surfaces. Models of figures, animals, flowers, or even buildings were not generally available. I still like the surface properties of heavy oil paint. The irregularity is nice in the context of logic and mathematics. I discovered bump mapping, and I had to put it everywhere. In the hummingbird film, we had lines as fragments, but now in 3D, we are displacing polygons. I like the stylish model comprised of bricks. I used my ribbon function with the properties of glass. My granddaughter Emily's drawings inspired the image. I still like drawing, but now I do it quite differently. I could never do something like this with pen and ink. I like the shadows, the 3D space, and the sense of light. The optical qualities of glass is of great interest to me. I place the flower into a world space of color and light. I love primitive art. My home is filled with primitive masks, figures, and furniture. It is a reminder to me that one does not always need complex tools to create art. I like this because it has no reference in nature. I enjoy the scribbles and the energy. You can do nice things with randomness and B-splines. I see the same 3D data of a Venus figure as lines, leaves, and solids. There's a relationship between them, even though their surface properties are different. A larger scale is really needed to appreciate the impact of 3D perspective upon the perception of space and light. I use the computer as a creative search engine, generating thousands of representations on a single theme. My concept of control is a hierarchical one, where I set the initial conditions for my objects or characters. With the computer's assistance, these conditions serve as constraints, which dynamically alter an object's position, scale, geometry. I punch keys like a writer, but my symbols are a mathematical-like code. The computer language enables me to organize and structure the artistic content and meaning. I learned many years ago, it takes time and experience before one becomes accustomed to a medium and tools. This is necessary before there can be any kind of flow or tempo to creative expression. My objects live in a 3D world space of color and light. I'm more comfortable with the idea, these are my paintings in motion. I use relatively slow movements to engage the viewer to see the complexity of the geometry, color, and light. It becomes a balancing act between the movement and visual structure, which show processes of change and spatial dimensions. Ultimately, the real challenge is creativity and understanding how to transcend the technology and bring to the problem a creative spirit. I think that while the technology will continue to change with new software and new tools, I remind myself to never forget I must find an imaginative way to use the technology. I'm still interested in the history of art. I continue to search for ways to express the beauty in a new world of 3D space, color, and light.